So Road to UFC is going to be coming back for the 2024 season, also known as season number 3. And this one here is going to be on the second day of the first round. This is going to be taking place on Sunday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time for episode 3. And episode 4 will be at Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I have already uploaded my predictions for episode 1 and 2. And of course, this is my predictions for episode number 3. Just to do a quick rundown, what Road to UFC is it's like Dana White's Contender Series, but it's a tournament. It's a tournament where there are 8 people from one weight class, and you have to obviously win each round to then get a UFC contract, single elimination. So it starts off with 8 people, and then it goes down to 4, and then it goes down to the final with 2 people, and the winner ends up getting a UFC contract. It's like Dana White's Contender Series, except you've got to win a tournament and not just individual bouts. But also, there are individual bouts on the cards, and this is one of them. This is one of the bonus fights, and I'm really, really excited for this fight, man. Like, I will be honest, I actually couldn't find that much tape on Tatsuya Saika. I was able to find some highlight videos of his. I was able to find some lowlight videos of his. I don't know why, but for some reason I just couldn't watch the Pancrase events. I don't know if I was geo-blocked, and he's also fought for Ryzen, and I didn't want to pay for the pass or something like that to watch the fight, so I did get to watch some highlights and kind of figure out what he's all about, and you can kind of just tell by looking at his topology what he's trying to do. He's trying to knock you out at the end of the day. Unfortunately for him, I did actually see a couple of his lowlights of him on the receiving end of losses, and one of them, this one here, this loss to Sungkwon Kim, is a really, really bad knockout loss, man. Like Alex Pereira knocking out Adesanya and putting him on the oxygen mask, kind of bad. Like, it was pretty bad. But he's bounced back. He's had a career, and now he's going to be fighting against Wonbin Ki. And I know that Wonbin Ki, you look at him, he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights, and he did lose to, but he didn't lose. He actually won that fight. He knocked him out and then got disqualified for back of the head shots. It was a shame. But the 4 that he did lose to Jikasaragi, and I know you could kind of say these performances kind of prove that maybe he isn't ready for the UFC. I really want to see Wonbin Ki in the UFC because this guy is so fun. He is absolutely massive for lightweight. You see him at 5'11". This guy is huge. I don't know if this photo is going to do it justice. It kind of does. He is absolutely gigantic for 155 pounds. Whereas with Tatsuya Saika, he's also a very tall guy for the weight class, but he's very, very thin. So both guys are going to be the same height, but one of them is going to be much bigger than the other, and they're both going to try and knock each other clean out, to be honest with you. I like Wonbin Ki in the matchup, though. Wonbin Ki, to me, is just proven to be able to knock out really good competition. Tatsuya Saika, as I said, it really could just come down to the fact that I couldn't actually see full fights out of Tatsuya Saika, but he is knocking guys out, but he's not really beating the best level of competition, and neither is Wonbin Ki, but he did knock out Bahati Boli Batibalati despite the DQ loss. He did knock out, okay, that doesn't count. He did knock out Jinosuke Kashimura in just a few minutes, you know, like, he's a Korean zombie guy. I do trust TKZ to build him up a bit. I know he's 33, but he's absolutely gigantic for the weight class. I know he's been KO'd by Jika, but Jika just knocked out, like, Lucas Almeida or something, who's a really good prospect at featherweight in the UFC. Wonbin Ki versus Tatsuya Saika. I'm going to go with Wonbin Ki by KO, but whoever wins this fight, just put them in the UFC, because like, these guys are fun, man. Tatsuya Saika's highlights are crazy. His head kick KO highlight is pretty easy to find. Once again, if you want to find tape study on these guys, the easiest way to do it is just to copy their given name in their natural language. For Tatsuya Saika, this will be in Japanese, but for the Chinese fighters, it will be in Mandarin or traditional Chinese. He's got a head kick KO pretty recently against Akira Okada. Legendary stuff. Puts him out cold, brutally. But yeah, someone's getting slipped. I'm looking forward to this fight. I hope whoever wins does get signed to the UFC, just because they are fun fighters, man. Now we can move on to the actual tournament sort of side of things. The 4 tournament bouts on the episode or on the card. The first one is going to be a flyweight fight between Jiniushiyue and Dong-Hoon Choi. And I'm going to pick Dong-Hoon Choi in this fight, and it's actually a really big shame because Jiniushiyue made it all the way to the finals last year. He dominated with his wrestling against Billy Pasulatan, and then he beat Angad Choi, who made it to the finals in 2022, I think. And then fought against Ray Saruya in the finals, and then lost by TKO in round number 1. But Ray Saruya is going to be the next Tatsuya Taira, honestly. He's very, very good. But now I was looking at tape on Dong-Hoon Choi, and I was very, very impressed by what I see. And one thing that I did find quite interesting is I feel like he put on a lot of muscle between this fight and this fight, which I kind of find weird. They're easy fights to find, so if someone else is going to do tape study on him, let me know in the comments below if I'm like being an idiot, if I'm being serious. But I swear he looked significantly bigger in his most recent fight against Noriyuki Wada than he did against this guy called Kenta Kubo. And in that fight against Kenta Kubo, he actually kind of got a comeback TKO win, and that was a banger of a fight, especially that round 3. If you want to do tape study, this is a much-watched fight. It's fun, but also more importantly, you actually kind of get to see how Dong-Hoon Choi deals with adversity, because he takes some big shots in there, shows that he's got a pretty decent chin. And then against Noriyuki Wada, he just dominates the fight. He knocks down Noriyuki Wada within the first 30 seconds and then dominates the first round in top control. And then 5 seconds into the second round, he lands a body kick and finishes him off in 5 seconds in the second round. Dong-Hoon Choi is a very, very good striker. I didn't actually need to see him defend takedowns, which is something that Jiniushiyue probably should utilize in this matchup, because Dong-Hoon Choi is a pretty big guy for 125 pounds. I do want to say, although he's going to be shorter, he will be the bigger guy with a little bit more kind of, I guess, muscle mass is kind of the terminology I'm looking for. I do think that Dong-Hoon Choi is going to knock out Jiniushiyue, man. I like Jiniushiyue. It's kind of sad, man. I really kind of feel for him because he made it all the way to the finals last year, and now I'm predicting him to lose in round 1 in this tournament. But I was watching Dong-Hoon Choi tape, and he impressed me, and he impressed me a lot. I think this guy's really good, and I do think that he's UFC level, and I do think he's going to beat Jiniushiyue. So I'm going to go Dong-Hoon Choi. I'm going to pick him to win by TKO. Round is kind of hard to predict because he does have power for all 3 rounds. As I said, he did have to get a comeback KO in round 3. Got it done in round 2 against Noriyuki Wada, and before that he has kind of been going to decision against lesser opponents, but I feel like we are seeing a little bit of a rapid improvement in his game. Jiniushi is going to be the better grappler, so I definitely could see people picking him for that grappling aspect, but I'm just going to kind of trust in Choi's striking. I think he's actually, as I said before, I think he's very good. And now we move on to the bantamweights. We've got Su-Young-Yu taking on Shohei Noze. And Shohei Noze is a very, very talented grappler, but he just doesn't have anything else. And that is a problem, in my opinion, against most opponents, especially if you are going to try and fight in the UFC, where you do have to be elite in striking, wrestling, and grappling. But I feel like against Su-Young-Yu, who is a grappler himself, I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem, because if you actually do watch his fight against Long Zhao, although he does lose a close split decision, and Long Zhao is going to have his bantamweight finals fight soon because it was delayed, Shohei Noze was putting Long Zhao in some very difficult positions on the ground there, and he was making Long Zhao battle out of leg locks, out of arm bars, and I feel like when he does take on lesser grapplers than Long Zhao, he is going to catch people in those submissions. And I think he is going to catch Su-Young-Yu in this one here, because I genuinely believe that Su-Young-Yu's going to actually want to grapple against Shohei Noze in this matchup, and I don't think that's a good idea. I do think Shohei Noze, pure grappling, is elite in pure grappling, and I almost want to say, like, he must have some sort of grappling background that I don't know about. Like, is he got like national level Brazilian jiu-jitsu kind of experience? Because this guy's elite on the, like, elite grappling, pure BJJ. Doesn't really have the wrestling to get there, doesn't really have the size to get there. As you can see, is pretty small for bantamweight, doesn't really have the striking on the feet. Su-Young-Yu's going to be the better striker, but he's a grappler, man. I just don't like the idea of Su-Young-Yu going in here and willingly taking down Shohei Noze. I think that he's going to put himself in some bad situations. Noze, as I said, is an elite grappler. He's going to throw up leg locks, arm bars. He's really good at grappling. That's kind of what I'm trying to say, and I do think he's just going to be better at grappling than Su-Young-Yu, who I think will be the bigger fighter, who I think will be the better striker. But this fight is going to go down to the ground at some point, and I do think Shohei Noze is going to lock up a submission against Su-Young-Yu. So give me Shohei Noze to win this matchup here by submission. Now we move back to the flyweights. It's going to be John Dave Almanza taking on Angad Bisht. Angad Bisht is from India, John Dave Almanza is from the Philippines, and I was quite impressed with both of these guys actually watching tape. Except the problem was John Dave Almanza, he wasn't really fighting the best level of competition, and I can't really blame him, and that's kind of the whole point of the actual tournament, is to get these guys experience on the international stage. But I kind of noticed that there's one very, very consistent thing in John Dave Almanza's fight compared to all of his other fights, and that's that he loves to be on his back. He's a triangle choke merchant. Um, he won his fight by armbar off his back in his debut, and then he beat this guy here, not by rear naked choke. I have actually sent in a report to Tapology about this one here. Once again, won that fight by triangle choke off his back. Beat this guy by triangle choke off his back. Beat this guy called John Brutas, which is a fight that you can find on YouTube. Or is it the Robin Leonin one? I think it was the John Brutas one, because it is all 3 rounds, where he wins the fight on his back, throwing up submissions. This guy, he's way too comfortable on his back, and he's very young as well. I do want to point out, I think he was 18 years old when he defeated James Bouyakan in 2022. So this guy must be like 20, 21 years old at the oldest right now. Maybe even, 20 years old, I would say, most likely. Like, he is quite inexperienced, quite new to MMA, whereas Angad Bisht is 29 years old. I could be wrong about this one, but I think he has had some elite training experience in his career as well. I think he has potentially trained at a UFC Performance Institute at some point, and he is the champion of Matrix Fight Night, which is a show, I guess you could say, that I actually do believe in quite a bit. I do like what Matrix Fight Night is doing for Indian MMA. Like, this is actually a very elite kind of high level production, high budget show as well, kind of promoting MMA in India. And I do think that you will see a lot of MMA in India kind of progress. And I think that we are going to see Angad Bisht win this matchup here. I thought he looked quite good in his last fight. He hasn't really been beating very good guys, but he did take on a guy with experience in his last fight. I thought he looked very composed on the feet. I thought he looked good for 125, as in he's got like quite a bit of size to him. Like, the thing about John Dave Almanza is this guy's tiny, whereas Angad Bisht, he's got like he's very well built. He's got a lot of muscle to him. He's going to be the bigger fighter, as you can see here. He's very good at grappling. He's going to be much stronger than John Dave Almanza. And I think that's kind of what it's going to come down to. I think John Dave Almanza is too comfortable on his back, and Angad Bisht, being the elite grappler in his own right that he is, and with the bigger size, should be able to control on top and work for his own submission. Another thing that Angad Bisht is very, very good at doing is backpacking his opponents. He likes to climb up on the back of his opponents when he does shoot for takedowns, get on the back. I think he's going to do that to John Dave Almanza here. I know John Dave Almanza's nickname is the Striker. I think that's just to put off his opponents. He's not a striker, like, at all. In fact, I'd almost say that Angad Bisht, I think, is the better striker in the matchup from what I kind of saw. Yeah, I like Angad Bisht to win the fight by submission here. It looks like most of Tapology's on the Almanza side. I do like Bisht to win. I do think Bisht is actually a very good fighter. There was rumors that he was actually signed to the UFC at some point, and then he was calling out fighters in one championship, so there were rumors that he had signed to one championship. All of this kind of alludes to the fact that the big promotions are interested in Bisht, and that's because he is a good fighter, and I do think he is better than John Dave Almanza at this point. But I feel like John Dave Almanza, dude, only being like 20 years old, he really could become a breakout prospect for the Philippines right now, because I think all the Philippines have in the UFC is Hyder Amil. I think Hyder Amil's the only fighter from the Philippines in the UFC right now. But let's move on to the finals. It's going to be Daermisi Zhawupasi taking on Ren Ozaki at bantamweight, and I think it's quite important to note that this fight is bantamweight because I watched Ren Ozaki's fights. This guy's a flyweight. This guy's not a bantamweight, man. He's way, way, way too small for the weight class. And one thing I do want to say about him, though, is he's a lot of fun, dude. Like, Ren Ozaki's fights are so fun to watch. Like, I know he hasn't really beaten the best guys. His win here against this guy called Ryuki Kirishima is kind of interesting because I guess you could argue it's a pretty early stoppage, but it was in like a ring. And both of these guys were landing bombs in that matchup. And yeah, I mean, aside from that as well, I did watch his fight against this guy, but he was 8-9, so it didn't really matter that much, I guess. Not really high-level competition, but yeah, Ren Ozaki, I like this guy, but he's too small for 135. He was smaller than most of the opponents that I watched him fight against, and that's going to be very important because he is fighting Daermisi Zhawupasi, who, in my opinion, is Khamzat Chimaev, but Chinese and a bantamweight, which I guess doesn't make that much sense until you watch his fights, because this guy shoots for takedowns as soon as the fight starts. He did it against Emperor Ginting, won in a minute. Did it against Chang Ho Lee, won in the third round. And I will be honest, as much as I like Ozaki and I do think he's a fun striker, and I will say this as well, I think Ozaki is actually a UFC level striker. I don't think he's going to have the takedown defense to deal with Daermisi Zhawupasi on the ground at all, to be honest with you. Which is a shame to say, because I think he's going to be so much smaller than Daermisi, man. Daermisi, I'm a believer in him. I think he's going to win the whole thing at bantamweight. Yeah, I like Daermisi Zhawupasi a lot, honestly, to win this matchup. I think he's going to win by ground and pound TKO. He's comes at Chimaev, but Chinese in a bantamweight. Literally, that's literally what I would describe him to be. Renazaki's a fun striker, but it seems to be all that he's got, and he's so small, man. He's 100. He's a flyweight, to be honest. I think Renazaki's going to be a lot of fun in the future of his career if he can kind of get a nutritionist and try and get down to 125 and then make a bit of a run at that weight class. But I do think right now, Daermisi Zhawupasi, I think he's with the UFC Performance Institute as well, so he's got all the backing there. I think that we're going to see him get it done, and get it done early with that wrestling. And honestly, I think we're going to see Daermisi win the whole thing. And I genuinely believe that Daermisi's style could actually get him pretty far in the UFC. Maybe not top 15, but he's 24 years old, so you never know. But yeah, that's kind of my predictions for that one there. That one went a lot longer. I guess it's just because, to be honest with you, I found a lot more tape on these fighters than I did episodes 1 and 2. I'll be honest, it's just so hard to find tape on fighters from China, just to be fully truthful with you. And also these women's MMA fighters, it was quite hard to find tape for them as well. So that's probably why this video went for a lot longer than the others. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.